Iran's nuclear facilities have been destroyed. If the Iranians chose to rebuild, they would have to rebuild in all three facilities, Natanz, Fordow, Esfahan, entirely, which would likely take years to do. Not only that, there's a UN report says that there was enormous damage to the nuclear sites. The IDF claiming the same thing, that they set the Iranians back years. And then the big one here, the CIA reporting, John Ratcliffe, that this, again, they have evidence that the Iranian strikes were severely damaged. So now that this is out there, the big question is what happens to this leaker, if you will. The FBI is investigating because they released that information. What would you like to see done?
Well, certainly, obviously, the FBI is conducting an investigation, and they should get to the bottom of it if any laws were violated. And certainly, the leaking of classified information is a violation of federal law. The individual should be prosecuted. We have to stop engaging in this effort to undermine our own government, to undermine our own military, to undermine the administration as they conduct one of the most important missions that has been conducted in a very long time. This was a difficult but necessary decision. Remember, President Trump gave Iran 60 days to negotiate an end to their nuclear program. They refused. They refused to negotiate in good faith. Israel took action on day 61, and ultimately the president made the legally justified decision to strike at Iran's nuclear facilities and obliterate them. And that is something that has forced Iran to the table to enter into a ceasefire after a very weak and symbolic response. And that would not have happened but for this decision. And I saw yesterday Antony Blinken say that this was the wrong decision. No, the wrong decision was what Antony Blinken and Joe Biden and Jake Sullivan allowed to happen in the Middle East. They allowed it to turn into a tinderbox because they allowed the illicit oil trade between China and Iran to fund Hamas and Hezbollah, to fund the ballistic missiles program that has been launched indiscriminately at civilian populations in Israel, and allowed them to expand their nuclear capabilities under their watch. That's the mistake that was made. President Trump made a decisive decision that was necessary to put an end to Iran's nuclear ambitions.
So many more questions on this, and in terms of the enrichment, for sure, that occurred under the previous administration. But I do have to turn to this. Let's pivot to New York City, my home state, and the Democrat mayoral primary. You represent a district which has a heavily Jewish population, and many of those residents have ties to Brooklyn. These same voters shifted towards the Republican Party last year, given the discontent with anti-Semitism running rampant throughout New York City. How do your constituents feel about the prospect of Zoran Mamdani possibly being the next mayor of New York City?
Well, I think, frankly, people are horrified. I mean, the fact is you have an avowed socialist who is anti-Semitic, who has proposed some of the most ridiculous and ludicrous pieces of legislation and policies that he has put forth. He is now the face of the Democratic Party. AOC and Zoran are leading the charge. It's why you see the most lukewarm, tepid, mealy-mouthed responses by Hakeem Jeffries, Chuck Schumer, and Kathy Hochul. They're petrified. They don't know which way to turn. They don't know what to do. They have no backbone or willingness to push back against this insanity. And so, Zoran Mamdani is poised, frankly, to be the next mayor of the largest city in the country, the financial capital of the world, and he is going to run it into the ground, proposing free busing, freezing the rent. He is proposing defunding the police. He was at a rally with folks to globalize the Intifada. He talks about arresting Bibi Netanyahu if he comes to New York City. I mean, it is totally insane. And my Democratic colleagues either need to embrace him and support him, or they need to disavow him. There can be no ambiguity here. They need to make very clear where they stand with respect to an avowed socialist leading their party and being poised to be the mayor of New York City.
All right, we got to leave it there. We do appreciate the time of Congressman Mike Lawler joining us from the Capitol. Congressman, good to see you, and thank you for that.
Thank you.
Information. Truth is freedom. Is Newsmax. It's real news for real people.